Welcome to another tutorial video. We're going to be discussing the topic of capitalized R&D today. I like this one because it touches on a lot of important other concepts like three-statement models, valuations, DCF models, and valuation multiples, even some elements of AI spending. And just to clarify what this means, normally when technology companies and others that depend on research and development record this expense, they list it as a normal operating expense on their income statement and everything is pretty standard. But companies can also choose to capitalize it, which means that instead of listing the initial spending on their income statement, they list it as a cash outflow on the cash flow statement underneath CapEx. What ends up happening is that this creates a capitalized R&D asset on the balance sheet, and then they amortize this R&D over time on the income statement. So that's what it's referring to. And some companies do this by default. In other cases, companies actually expense it, but you can adjust it and capitalize the R&D instead from their statements. Now, some people think this is a great idea, but we recommend against making this type of adjustment and changing it around to capitalize it. If the company is already doing it, which is very common for many non-US companies, you can certainly continue with that treatment. A lot of well-known sources like Professor Damodaran at NYU recommend adjusting and capitalizing R&D for theoretically sound reasons. They argue that research and development spending represents the creation of long-term assets that will generate revenue for a company many years into the future. And this is all theoretically correct. The problem is that there are a lot of practical issues that come with this, from creating the forecasts to setting up the valuation multiples to comparing different companies. And the shift in a lot of companies toward AI token spending makes it even trickier because it's not always clear exactly how to classify that, how it should be capitalized, whether it represents exploratory expenses or actual product development expenses, for example. So if you want this tutorial in writing, along with the screenshots, PDFs, and a couple different Excel files here, you can go to this URL. It's on our financial statement analysis page and then capitalized RD. I will link to this below the video and pin it as the first comment as well. I'm going to start with the short answer here and explain why we don't think this is a good idea and show you some numerical examples. Then I'll explain what to do if a company is already capitalizing R&D using this example of Xero based in New Zealand. And then I'll go through some comparability issues and valuation multiples and show you how you can address some of these issues if you have to deal with this in real life. So to illustrate the basic concept here, I'm going to pull up an example from our Twitter leverage buyout model, which has support for R&D amortization for tax purposes at least. The basic idea is that at the time this deal took place, US-based firms had to capitalize their domestic R&D spending for tax purposes and then amortize it over time. So they still listed it in the standard way in the statements, but they could not deduct the entire upfront amount for tax purposes. So the typical approach is to take what you would normally list for the R&D spending on the income statement, and instead of deducting it right away, you distribute it over 5 years, and then you simply deduct the amortization. So this is what it would look like. Let's say that this company is spending about 500 million to more like 1.6 or 1.7 billion on R&D over about a 6-year period. So we're going to take the minimum between essentially our remaining balance and then the set amount to be amortized each year. Now the remaining balance equals the initial spending right here plus everything that we have amortized so far. So we're going to sum up everything in cell K25. I'll anchor the first K part right there. And then for the set annual amount, the first thing we're going to do is check whether or not this is zero. Now, if it's not zero, then that means that we're in the first year of spending, which means that we can take this number and then we can divide by the amortization period, which is assumed to be 5 years right here. And then I'll divide by 2 to apply the mid-year convention to it and to assume that half of this amount is amortized in the first year. Now, if we're beyond the first year, then we'll just take a whole set annual amount instead. So we have that. And then we can just copy and paste this around and we have that set up. And if you add up this whole thing, let's just do that right now, it should equal the 574.2. So we're simply distributing it over about 5 years here, technically 6 years because of the half-year convention. And then as you go down, you would essentially just copy and paste down this formula all the way and just relink some of the items. So I'm going to jump to a finished version that already has all this in place. Okay, so here's what the full amortization schedule looks like. As you can see, the number keeps going up each year because the R&D spending keeps increasing and we keep reflecting additional amounts being amortized each year. Now, for tax purposes, you would add back the normal expense on the income statement for R&D, and then you would deduct the amortization right here. So you're making a tax adjustment and saying that the company cannot deduct the full cash spending on R&D. They can only deduct the amount that is being amortized each year, and that will affect the cash taxable income. So that's the basic idea for how it works. Now, to go one step further, what you would do is list the R&D amount on the cash flow statement under CapEx, and then list the R&D amortization directly on the income statement. Under US GAAP, this treatment for tax purposes was really only a requirement for a few years. And in 2025, when the One Big Beautiful Bill passed, companies could finally deduct the full R&D spending once again. So this became more of an optional thing that most companies are going to probably choose not to do. If you wanted to do something like this and actually move the cash outflows to the cash flow statement, you face a couple of practical issues. For one thing, how can you estimate the useful life of R&D spending or even split it into different types of projects or tasks, ones that last for a long time versus ones that are only temporarily useful? You could rely on the company and do whatever they do, or if you're following some type of law, as was the case here, maybe you could use a set 5-year period, but if there is no guidance and the company doesn't say anything, it's really hard to tell what to do. Another issue is that with the massive spending from many tech companies on AI tokens and AI services, it's not entirely clear what to do, if they should capitalize this or just expense it, because it depends a little bit on the nature of the product that they're working on. Is it something for internal use? Is it something external that's going to be delivered to customers? Is it more of an exploration, or is it actually being spent toward a product that they're building, a real product for some purpose? From a valuation perspective, if you capitalize R&D, it means that EBITDA now differs between companies with capitalized versus expensed R&D, and that requires adjustments. It can also distort metrics like the return on invested capital. So to show you an example, if we go over to this metrics tab, for a company where the R&D is 100% expensed, EBITDA tends to be lower, whereas for a company that capitalizes R&D, EBITDA is higher because in this capitalized case, we actually add back the amortization of capitalized R&D, whereas in the expense case, there is nothing to add back because the R&D is a simple expense. It's not amortization or depreciation of any kind. So it creates all sorts of comparability issues, and you typically have to adjust for it by deducting the capitalized R&D and creating an additional EBITDA metric. So there are a lot of issues and a lot of comparability problems that come up if you try to make this adjustment yourself and capitalize R&D. That's the short answer. Let's now go into part 2 and talk about what to do if you're working with a company that already capitalizes its R&D. So we'll use this example of Xero, which is an accounting and finance software company based in New Zealand targeted at small businesses. By default, it capitalizes part of its R&D spending and then expenses the rest, because IFRS says that if a company is spending money just as experimentations or part of the trial stages of a new product or service or something like that, it can be expense. But then once the company decides to actually develop something specific and spend money on it, then that should be capitalized. So you will see a lot of international companies that expense part of their R&D and then capitalize the remaining portion. In a discounted cash flow model, you subtract both elements here, the capitalized part and the expense part. You also have to reflect a higher depreciation and amortization because of the R&D amortization that's now included. And of course, with this, only the expense portion is actually tax deductible. So let's go back to Excel and see what this looks like. I'm going to pull up the Xero DCF model right here. And in the unlevered free cash flow projections, you can see how we have the traditional product design and development or expensed R&D right there. Now this affects EBIT and therefore affects the company's taxes and acts as a tax deduction. But then if you scroll down, you can see that we also have capitalized product development here, and this counts more like CapEx. In fact, it's almost exactly the same. They're both counted as cash outflows, but the capitalized product development is not actually deducted for tax purposes. So this is what it would look like. And in this case, Xero has done this consistently over many years, so it's fine to continue this treatment. When we forecast these, we make both of these dollars per subscriber figures because this is a subscription-based software company. And so we forecast both these like this and assume that as the company's subscriber base grows, they will have to spend more on both forms of research and development. When you do this though, there is an important caveat, which is that normally in a DCF, you look at the D&A as a percent of revenue and you compare it to the CapEx as a percent of revenue. And you want to make sure that CapEx always stays above D&A, at least if the company is growing over time. When you have this type of setup though, the more appropriate comparison is CapEx plus capitalized R&D divided by revenue. So let's go in and take a look at how this works. I have the traditional D&A as a percent of revenue here. And then for the capitalized R&D plus CapEx as a percent of revenue, let's take the CapEx and then the capitalized product development and then divide by revenue. And then to get the signs correct, I will put a negative in front of this. And let's copy this across. So in the historical period, in most of these years, the CapEx plus capitalized R&D pretty clearly exceeds the D&A. And this continues for the first part of this forecast period, but a few years into it, they sort of swap places. And by the end, the capitalized R&D plus CapEx is actually lower than the depreciation and amortization. So what we would say in a case like this is that we probably need to bump up these estimates. So instead of starting this at an 8% growth rate and then making it end at 4%, perhaps we go up a little bit and we make it start at a 12% growth rate and we make it end at 6%, let's say. If I do that and I use Alt-E-I-S to create a series, this is not fixed 100%, but they're a lot closer to each other by the end. So we'd say that something like this is a better way to forecast it and something that you have to check if you are working with a company where they capitalize all or some of their R&D spending. Let's go into part 3 and talk more specifically about some of these comparability issues as well. So people who argue that you should capitalize R&D and make this adjustment will often say that it more accurately represents companies' margins in a DCF, and that they shouldn't really be penalized in the current period for spending money on R&D because it's going to be useful for the long term and their margins should actually be a little bit higher. Our response would be maybe, but these differences do tend to even out over time, and capitalizing R&D creates issues with some other valuation methodologies. For example, think about a scenario where you have company A that expenses 100% of its R&D spending and then company B that capitalizes 100% of its R&D spending. If you have a scenario like this, company A will end up with a lower EBITDA and a higher EBITDA multiple as a direct result. So let's go into Excel and look at the metrics tab right here, and I'll calculate this and show you what I'm referring to. So with the standard EBITDA calculation, we start with operating income or EBIT, we add back the normal D&A from leases and PP&E and so on, and then we add back the amortization of capitalized R&D. And if you do it like this, you can see that the company that is capitalizing R&D has a much higher EBITDA as a direct result. If you look at the margins, we're dealing with a 15% versus 45% margin. And then if you go up and calculate the valuation multiples, let's just take enterprise value and divide by EBITDA down here. The company that's expensing R&D has a 7.4x EBITDA multiple. The company that's capitalizing it has a 2.5x multiple, which is very, very deceptive because there's no way that one of these companies is worth 3 times as much just because of its accounting treatment of R&D. Now, this is obviously an extreme example because I'm trying to illustrate the point, but things like this can happen when companies spend a lot on research and development. Since both companies are ultimately spending the same amount on R&D, but just recording it differently, we'd say this is quite deceptive. And so one solution would be to deduct all the R&D spending within EBITDA, including the capitalized R&D, to get a better comparison. So to go in and make this adjustment, let's bring up the metrics file once again, and I'll create this additional metric down here called EBITDA minus capitalized R&D. So we'll take the EBITDA here and then go down to the cash flow statement where the capitalized R&D is listed. And this is already a negative, so we can just add it. And then we'll take this and divide by the revenue to get the margin. And you can see that in this case, now we end up at a 15% margin for both companies, which is much more accurate. Now, if we take the enterprise value and divide by this number, it is not quite a perfect match, but they are very, very close now. 7.4x versus 7.5x. And the differences are actually because the cash number is slightly different depending on the treatment of R&D. But you get the idea. We get to a much, much closer and more reasonable estimate when we set it up like this. When you look at other metrics like return on invested capital, you get to similar issues because the equity and cash levels and NOPAT, net operating profit after taxes, will also differ. And so you can do all of this. You can do whatever you want in models, but by making this one adjustment, by capitalizing R&D when companies normally expense it, you end up having to make many other adjustments if you're looking at a set of comparable companies or you are in any way comparing the subject company to others in the same market. And so this is why we don't really think this is a great idea. To do a quick recap and summary, the short answer is that when you capitalize R&D, you take the normal income statement expense and you instead put it on the cash flow statement, and then you distribute it over a period of years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, something like that. And then you deduct that amortization on the income statement, and that's what you deduct for tax purposes as well. We don't favor doing this if the company is not already doing it because it creates a lot of complications with comparability and other metrics. Now, if the company is already capitalizing R&D, as we saw with zero, mostly because it follows IFRS, you can certainly continue that, but you have to be careful about metrics like the capitalized R&D plus CapEx divided by revenue and comparing that to D&A as a percent of revenue. In terms of the comparability issues, I showed you some of the main ones over here, that metrics like EBITDA and the EBITDA multiple can be very deceptive. And so to adjust for it, you have to deduct the capitalized R&D if you are making this type of comparison. You could also go in and try to adjust all the financials manually for both companies, but honestly, if you just have a set of peer companies, it's typically easier to create these types of alternative metrics to normalize for these differences. That's about it. Hopefully now you know a little bit more about capitalized R&D, why some people argue for it, but why we generally do not think it is a good idea in financial models or valuations.